Hello and welcome to the 14th episode of Random or Nintendo. I'm Jason, and usually we say virtual 14. Usually we say virtual left and virtual right, but you know what? Today we're virtually in one of those zero-G airplanes where you float around for like 5 minutes. So where are you guys positioned around me in this weird space? And are you somersaulting, corkscrewing? What shape are you making in zero-G?
Just
I'm in the
spinning
restroom.
around. I'm like Sonic, just spin dashing in there.
And who are you? Okay, so Angel's Sonic, and Ken, you said you're in the restaurant. You didn't even go up on the plane.
No, I said I'm in the restroom.
Oh, restroom. That's a bad time to go to the restroom. You have 5 minutes of zero-G, and that, or maybe a good time depending on what you are planning. But okay, would you ever do a zero-G plane for real?
I would. I mean, you wouldn't do one of those. They have it at Universal where you basically float in the air like you're skydiving.
Yeah, it's like a reverse skydive. It's like a giant fan that pushes you up.
Yeah,
like
would you do
I've always
that?
wanted to do that. I've never done it. What is the most extreme thing you would do? Would you skydive? Have you guys skydived?
No, I do plan on skydiving though.
My sister has, and it's apparently as terrifying as I think it is, but obviously it seems worth it. But,
yeah, that's kind of where I land is...
I see what you did there.
Oh, yeah, that's kind of where I land. It's like, it seems totally worth it, but I don't know if I could bring myself to do it. Like, same with bungee jumping.
I guess it would be the ultimate test if you ever need to just, like, I don't know, prove something. I'm sure there's a mental breakthrough in there somewhere if you do it that, like...
I'm sure.
You know...
Well, it's funny because right when
therapists can only dream they could solve.
It's like, because right when we were about to record, you're like, I said, okay, I'm going to count us in, and you're like, do you have the cojones to do it? And I jokingly was like, no. But now that you're making the skydiving comment, I'm like, I might be too terrified. I'm like, wait, do I need to skydive so I have confidence in life? Is that where we're going?
You need to climb that mountain, as they say.
Man, wow, what a way to start the show is something that deep. But anyway, what is the craziest thing you've done in terms of like a thing like that, if anything?
Pretty sure it would have to be either a roller coaster or actually maybe kayaking in a dangerous cave that almost flipped.
The kayak almost flipped, I assume, not the cave.
Yeah, the kayak, of course.
Yeah. What was it, like rapids or was it?
Yeah, it was kind of rapids. Like just in the like. It was near Catalina Islands. The water is typically still, but inside that cave in particular, it was, moving kind of wildly, and teacher just wanted to go in there, and yeah, it was pretty scary. So that's probably the most thing, if I had to guess.
What about you, Kevin? Does anything spring to mind? I personally don't have anything that immediately springs to mind because I guess I'm just a weak person. But have you done anything up there? No,
nothing extreme. Nothing radical. The most extreme I've ever gotten is watching an extremely goofy movie, but I don't know if that counts or not.
That has a lot of tude in and of itself. Very 90s tude, so sure, we'll count it.
Cool. Then that is the most extreme thing that I've ever done. No, maybe I just can't think of it, but no, I don't think I've ever done anything.
Yeah, I can't think of much for myself either. Like, I've done stuff that's kind of like out of the ordinary. Like, somehow 2 different schools I went to, middle and high school, took us out to basically live on a tall ship for like a week and like hoist the sails and stuff, which is unique and cool, but not extreme unless extreme sports and pirates are one and the same thing now. But yeah, I don't think I've done. I think, Angel, you might win with almost flipping over in rapids in a cave.
That's unfortunate.
Congratulations on your achievement, I guess, at least among the three of us.
I guess the only thing I could say is just hanging out with Jason, but that's about it.
I'm not that extreme, as we just established. But
but it's very dangerous to our health.
Yeah, exactly.
Fair. Okay, I will give you that. But I guess we can have our little zero-G plane land and kind of get into the meat and potatoes of the show, if you guys want. What? that reaction to meat and potatoes.
Yeah,
because it's a big... What'd I do there? I don't even know what I did there. Meat and potatoes? Is there a pun there I missed?
No, just using a metaphor.
Oh, okay. Sure. I do like them. But yeah, because it was a big couple weeks for Nintendo, big day for Nintendo recently. Did everyone watch the Direct? Show of hands or verbal show of hands?
I did. I almost missed it, but I did watch it.
What about you, Kevin? Did you?
I did watch it.
And what did everyone think? Actually, before we get to what we think, I feel like we should start with the biggies of it, right? Like, before we even discuss the show itself, and like just like Nintendo bookended the whole thing with gameplay debuts of Pikmin 4 and Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Two games I feel like we kind of knew were absolutely going to show up. They're kind of like the big pillars for Nintendo in 2023, at least of what we know so far. So I guess I'm curious if those games stood out to you guys as pillars within the lineup of the Direct. Like, what did you think now that we actually know what these games kind of look like beyond just like cinematic teasers? You feeling it? You not feeling it? What was kind of everyone's takeaway?
I don't ever think of games the way you do, so like I don't ever think of like, oh, this is gonna be their pillar for this year. My mind just doesn't think in that way. So,
oh yeah, no, that I know is weird Jason stuff. That's dangerous to hang out with to hear. I mean, what'd you think of Zelda? What'd you think of Pikmin? Like them, dislike them, look cool, not look cool?
Zelda looks like Zelda. Pikmin looks like Pikmin.
Great analysis.
Yeah,
they're sequels. There's not much that
I know.
Yeah, Zelda in particular, showed some vehicles that almost looked like exactly like something that would come out of like Nuts and Bolts. So it's almost like, oh, is this where it's going? Is this the Nuts and Bolts of
the Banjo-Kazooie vibes? Mm-hmm.
But but other than that, like, I mean, I'm sure it's intentional, but like they kept a lot of things close to the chest, so we almost didn't get anything new that wasn't in the last game outside of like aesthetics. But there's clearly going to be a twist. If anything, it just made me feel like, okay, where is the thing that's like, I don't know, halfway through that's going to like just change everything.
But I feel like the vehicles are kind of that. Like
they kind of are, but the thing is, like, people kind of figured out other impromptu vehicles. I mean, obviously nowhere near as efficient as what this flying device looks like, or this car,
drone, or the hot air balloon, or the car, or there's a lot of them now.
Or the flying mine car that you just stack two mine cars on top of each other and you get to go pretty fast in any direction. Right. Just requires a little bit of balancing, but yeah, like pretty much it's like we've had vehicles in Asterix, but I mean, I guess having proper ones is cool. I mean, I guess I don't know to what extent you build them, if anything, but.
Right. It's funny because I feel like I was into the like kind of nuts and bolts, for the analogy you used, vibe of the whole thing. Because like, admittedly, it's really hard to be a sequel to a game like Breath of the Wild, because that game did so much cool stuff in terms of how it reinvented the franchise and gave so much freedom in terms of what players can do within that, like you're saying, that, it was such a big reset for Zelda, and that's always going to be hard to beat in terms of hyping up a direct sequel. And I feel like the vehicles are kind of intense because, like, there's typical sequel-y stuff in Tears of the Kingdom. Verticality was big in the first game, so now you can just go all the way up into the sky. The verticality keeps
now it's
climbing.
Sonic Adventure, so there's grinding everywhere.
Yeah, cool. But it's like the vehicle thing to me it kind of feels like the developers were, in the way that they had to sort of distinguish Majora's Mask from Ocarina of Time, that kind of feels like what the vehicles are. Like, because, like with Majora, obviously it had the same underlying engine as Ocarina of Time, same underlying gameplay systems of how you interact with the world and the dungeons and everything. So they got kind of like weird, right, with Majora, and they got creative because they kind of needed to, because it needed some identity of its own. Yeah. So we got Link doing stuff like what he did in Ocarina, but hey, he's now doing it as a Deku Nut or a Zora or a Goron. And then, like, let's throw in a time limit because, the other game had this pace. We'll make this new game this other pace. And it's a little darker, just to really kind of put the exclamation point at the end of, hey, I'm a different game, I swear, sentence. So it seems like with the vehicles, the vibe I picked up on is they saw kind of that people were doing stuff like you're describing. And they obviously had the bike in the DLC. And then they're just like, what if these are the masks? Like, what if, instead of it being like, here's an open world to explore, but now you can climb higher, they're kind of like, well, let's make the game one where you now have fun with how to travel as we decide to present it to you. Like the first game, really, the way they told you how to travel was just like horse and eventually bike. But now they're like, what if it's masks? Like, what if there's a car? What if there's a hot air balloon? What if there's like, what if there are rails you can skate on like Sonic, which they showed for like a millisecond in the trailer? Just the whole thing kind of had this vibe of like, well, let's, in the way Master, like, let's transform Link for the first time and have you experience the same kind of gameplay, but with like this different perspective. It's like, well, what if we change how you travel? Because we built this big world and we're repeating the big world, but like what you can do to get from point A to be in that world will be more variety and more crazy than anything you've done at Zelda. Every Zelda at most has like 1 or 2 vehicles or a horse or a boat. This has at least 4 in just the trailer. So like that's kind of how I picked up I don't know if like it's enough, because to your point, people got really crazy, but maybe for like the more mainstream players, like people like me who don't sit there and do like the crazy physics puzzles to launch myself across the sky in a minecart, like maybe that this is sort of the developer's way of embedding that into the game and making it unique for that reason. I don't know. It's just like, that's what I saw. Like when I saw a vehicle, I'm like, oh, masks, but with wheels or in the air. So we'll see. Like, we'll see how close it stays to Majora, because I feel like even the trailer, it already felt a little more cinematic, a little darker. No, I don't know about that voice actor that was kind of sort of Ganon. I think he's supposed to be Ganon, but there's something about that felt a little overperformed. I don't know, but they have that.
Supposed to be Ganon?
I think that's the speculation.
Dorf?
Is it might be. Yeah, right. I forgot to say Dorf, but I think that's the speculation, is that it might be him. But like whoever it is, like clearly they're going for like kind of a little darker. It's felt a little more cinematic, so that also mirrors Majora. So I'm just curious, like how Majora-y they get. Like, are there gonna be time constraints? Is there gonna be like more pressure on things? Obviously, they had the blood moon in the first game, but yeah, I don't know like how closely they're paralleling Majora, but so far the vehicles do feel like a parallel to me. And I actually really like the vehicles because it's fun driving around in weird things. So yeah, it's very nuts and bolts though. You're right. Yeah, I'm sure we'll find out more. I think the game's out in May, so we'll probably get a direct in like a Zelda direct in like mid-April, probably early April, like maybe the week after the Mario movie, just so they let that hype go and then lead into Zelda, I would guess. Yeah, but we'll see. But what about Pikmin? What'd you?
Hold on. There's a rumor that this game is going to cost $70.
It's confirmed. It's not a rumor.
It's confirmed. Okay.
Yeah.
I am going to be very interested how this game technically performs.
It's gonna perform fine.
It's gonna perform bad?
No, fine. It's gonna be fine. It'll be. No one's gonna not buy it for the extra 10. Is my guess.
No.
So
I'm technical on a technical wise.
Oh, sure.
Because if this game dips even a frame under 30 frames, I'm gonna be. Oh, that's not cool.
So
nope, not for 7 years. For 7-year-old hardware, games costing $70. No.
It does sound like, to a degree, part of the reason it might be $70 is the game is physically too big for the standard cartridge that Nintendo puts out. So it's almost like again, a weird Majora's Mask parallel. It's almost like late N64 era. It's almost like the expansion pack upcharge when you got games that use the expansion pack on the N64. Because from what I was reading, it sounds like they have to use the next size up cartridge, which is more expensive to produce. And because it's Zelda, Nintendo's probably like, we don't have to eat the cost because it's Zelda. We'll just pass it on. But yes, that's a good point, that if it's like a Pokemon situation, will that $10 difference actually make it more upsetting than even what people went through at Pokemon? Yep, which, by the way, Pokemon still sold 20 million, is like the fourth best selling of all time. So it's not like that really hindered the game, but yeah, definitely the experience
I'm not
for some hardcore folk.
I'm not saying that like, oh, I wonder if jackasses like me are going to be I mean, in the sense of like, yeah, cool, Pokemon sold 70 gajillion copies. That still doesn't change the fact that it runs like ass.
Right.
I'm sure Zelda, no matter how much you're going to cost, it's going to sell like crazy. But will the cost be justified?
Yeah, no, I get that. Especially
on the technical level.
Right, and I think to go with that
the
is like
is obviously going to be awesome.
Yeah, and Breath of the Wild ran really smooth. So in theory, if all they're doing is Breath of the Wild plus some more, like it should run smooth. And if they want, it ran relatively smooth.
But you're saying that this is a larger game?
Like physically larger. It doesn't necessarily mean what you're experiencing at any given moment is going to be that much more intense.
No, but you're saying that this game is just, they need a larger cart for this, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that means that there's going to be more on that cartridge, and how well is that content going
Yeah,
to
that's
run.
fair. I see what you mean. Right, like how fast can they pull that from the cartridge into the game, into the system? Yeah.
Sure. Like that's my only worry.
Yeah, I would be. It's weird because on the one hand, I would never have guessed Nintendo would let Pokemon happen how it happened. But on the other hand, Pokemon did happen how it happened, and there are complaints,
Even
but
though
it
it's
didn't
been
slow the
the
game
trend
down.
for like the last few games.
Yeah. It's kind of like I think I was saying this and I was getting my early Pokemon impressions. Like, I don't know if Pokemon doing as well as it's going to do, or now has done, with those issues, is giving Nintendo a pass to now allow those issues, or if that was like a hiccup in their usually solid, like, QAing. So, I guess this is really the litmus test, actually. Yeah, you raise a really good point. This would be the test.
Yeah, so we'll see.
Yeah. Fingers crossed that runs smooth. Because, we're never going to hear the end of it if it doesn't. I don't mean from you. I mean, like, every Nintendo fan will be like, about it, understandably. So, yeah. I guess that's a question for all games going forward now, right? Like, because Nintendo, obviously, scale and scope for a lot of these bigger games are going to...
Not necessarily. It goes on a game-by-game basis. Like, they're going to release games that aren't nearly as hardware intensive as, Zelda. Like, a Mario game will never be as hardware intensive.
Right. Yeah, no, I was thinking more
Zelda
like Pikmin, which is going for sort of photorealistic-ish look. So I wonder how far they will push that. Like, are they willing to sacrifice frame rate or things like that for Pikmin 4? Because the game looks really nice. Like, that was the other big, like, pillar, if you will, the Direct. And I thought it looked very pretty, but it's kind of like, Now I'm starting to wonder, it's reminding me of that conversation we had about, like, is Pokemon setting a bad example for what Nintendo get away with? I'm starting to wonder, are they going to just get Pikmin 4 out the door by that July 21st date, and if they need to patch it, they need to patch it? Or, like, are they going to scale back things if they're worried it's too intense? Like, I don't know, because obviously that has a lot of processing power, because you got your 100 Pikmin, you got this new dog character. Like, there's a lot going on the screen. So that'll be interesting to see as well.
Yeah, definitely looks interesting, but I'm gonna...
Yeah, what do you think of Pikmin? Angel, I'm really curious what you think of Pikmin 4, because I know you had some hesitations with the difficulty of Pikmin 3.
Yeah, that was pretty legit. Everything else was perfect. It played as good as, like, the Pikmin franchise ever played. But, mechanics looked interesting. Like, I'm curious to see what they do with the dog to make it a nice new puzzle piece instead of, like, a make things easier button.
Right.
Which the last one I feel didn't really have. I mean, having 3 captains obviously does make certain things easier, but it did make for some really great level design that unfortunately, like, didn't get too, or I guess, any more complicated than we expected outside of, like, the DLC. But by the time the DLC came out, it was, like, already too little too late. But I mean, it looks like we're getting dungeons back. The only other thing that I'm just curious about is what that night mode was, because it looks like it's implied that you can explore around, given, like, the little goodies, and if the night is when the monsters are supposed to be even crazier, then curious how that's going to play out, or how difficult that will be.
That felt like potentially the biggest shakeup, because, like, I feel like when I was watching it, I kept just thinking to myself, like, oh my god, finally, because everything they were showing, I was super happy with what I saw, but, like, unlike what I was saying at Tears of the Kingdom, where I feel like they're trying to differentiate as much as they can, it almost feels like Pikmin's team just looked at the decade gap since, like, Pikmin 3, and was just like, yeah, let's just use that playbook. So, like, it's very, like, Pikmin evolves or grows in a very, like, linear line, right? Like, Pikmin 2 to 3, they both introduced 2 new types of Pikmin. And look, here's an ice Pikmin, and I assume there's another coming in 4. Or, like, they bring in new characters each time. Like you were saying, it kind of shakes up gameplay, but it was like, now there's 2 captains in the second one. Now there's 3 captains in the third one. And I feel like someone at Nintendo's like, we can't have 4 captains. That's crazy. So they did the dog instead, which is just, to your point, what other way can we change how you navigate your Pikmin around the environment and yourself and manage them?
They do show more than 2 captains.
Mode.
But curious, like...
But they don't show them. They don't show.
Oh no! Yeah.
Time. Yeah, it seems like they're replacing the 3 captain system with the dog. Is the vibe I picked up.
I mean, I
on.
wonder if they'll even, like, go back to 2 and maybe treat the dog as, like, a weird third
as like the plus, or like a boat or a ship that you could carry the Pikmin on. Yeah, but all that felt very, like, as I was watching it, just like, oh yeah, this is exactly how they do a sequel. They change this thing, they add this thing, and then they increase this thing. Even the box art. Like, if you look at the box art for Pikmin 4, ever since Pikmin 2, the box art's been exactly the same. You have the 3 original Pikmin standing in a line, looking dead ahead at you, and then there's just chaos around them with all the new Pikmin and enemies. And every single box does that. So, like, it's very by the book, which isn't a problem, because after, telling us in 2015, we were going to get Pikmin 4 and then releasing Hey Pikmin on the 3DS, and then doing Pikmin Bloom on mobile, which admittedly I still really do enjoy. But, like, just giving us the confirmation of here's another Pikmin that's really Pikmin and not Hey Pikmin 2 is, I feel like all they needed to say. But yeah, that night thing that you mentioned, that little tease, like a split second, that could be the thing that actually breaks out of that formula and changes things in some way. Even if it's just like the equivalent of the Blood Moon in Zelda, and things are just like amped up for a set amount of time. Like, regardless, that is something actually like new to the core game versus being a side mode. Like,
I guess that could be how they reintroduce the timer. Maybe like at night.
Yeah.
Just like a straight up survival kind of deal. But I don't know. We'll see. I'm just trying not to prejudge it beforehand. I'm gonna wait for it to come out. But honestly, just hoping that the campaign is a little longer, or at the very least, this is more satisfying 200%. Like Pin 2 was, because that game, I would say, was basically perfect.
Yeah, too. I mean, I referenced, I think I actually called it Battle Bingo, but I referenced Bingo Battle a second ago, and yeah, like even multiplayer in Pikmin 2 I felt was like the pinnacle. Like I don't even think they called it Bingo Battle in 2. I think it was just 2-player battle, but like that was great, and then 3 kind of changed it a little. So like, if they go back to what 2 did with multiplayer, if they make it as long as 2, if they, make the difficulty more your fit, like that, they have everything they need to make the perfect Pikmin game. So... And they're following they're following the formula of what makes a new Pikmin good, like right off the bat here. So as long as they keep true to that, I think this will be ultimately what people have been asking for a decade.
The only huge shame is that I thought the controls for Pikmin 3 were like perfect. Like playing with the Wiimote nunchuck is like the best way to control Pikmin. And then also having the gamepad and shit between my brother and I, just as this like extra map that you can also use to RTS your way through the level, was also really, really awesome. So it is unfortunate that by default it just feels like we're going backwards. But I'll get over that quickly, I hope. And it looks like the controls work. I think I tried the demo for the Pikmin 3 Deluxe, but yeah.
I mean, we know
it's just an unfortunate thing.
It sounds, we know for sure they work because they worked well on Pikmin 2. So if they just graft that over, we know it will work. But I get what you mean. Yeah, like it's can it substitute the? It's one of the few games that really used the Wii U well. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, the Wiimote nunchuck. I mean, infrared is infrared. It's not going to compare with like the accelerometer, which you have to like reset every once in a while. But yeah.
What was I gonna say? Do you think? Like, I kind of get the feeling they know 3 was the pinnacle of that approach, which is partly why not only, are they sort of providing pointer control still, I have to imagine, but also why they dropped the camera down. Like, I wonder if, just thinking out loud, do you think, like, the reason they changed the camera perspective is partly, like, listen, we made an RTS in the best way we could. You had a touchscreen. We can't do that again. So, like, let's make it feel a little more like a third-person adventure game, and then maybe that justifies the control step back or something. Like, they kind of feel like those decisions went hand in hand.
Oh, I'm sure there's some correlation. Like, there's no reason. Yeah, the change to the lower perspective feels like there's like some other stuff going on there than just aesthetic.
Yeah, like it definitely feels like they're masking the fact.
Because in theory, the other camera feels better suited for the type of game Pikmin is. But yeah,
right.
What's that to say?
Yeah. We'll see. But yeah, and that one's out, I think, in July now, which is the furthest out game we know in Nintendo's lineup as of today. But yeah, so that those were kind of like the 2 bookends of the presentation. But obviously there's a lot of stuff in the middle. What do you guys think? Now that we've kind of gotten the heavy hitters out of the way, what did you think of the Direct?
Overall, it was definitely one of the stuff like, oh wow, a lot of interesting games getting shown. I mean, for me, only Metroid Prime and the Layden, Teeth of a Layden, the
Ghost Trick.
Oh, and definitely Ghost Trick. I would say those 3 were definitely my highlights, especially Ghost Trick more than anything. Just because it's just nice to see that game getting any kind of acknowledgement. And obviously Metroid Prime is a must get for me already, at least a physical copy. Ghost Trick, I just hope it does well. I hope it gets a sequel or at least some kind of follow-up, because it's a pretty amazing game.
I was surprised Ghost Trick showed up. Like, I mean, it makes sense because Phoenix Wright has had kind of a resurgence in popularity. Same team, sort of the spiritual sibling of a game of sorts. But like I did not have that on any bingo card, that's for sure. Ken, what do you think of the direct? Anything catch your eye? How you feel about the whole show?
Can't even remember it.
Well, there you go. Nintendo failed. You failed, Kevin.
Mainly because my memory's bad. Like I saw it just casually. I wasn't paying attention to anything. I just had it off to the side.
Right. I mean, for sure, if something stood out, even on the side, you'd remember. You know, if there was like a Persona 6.
Maybe.
Persona 6, you would know, right?
Yeah, but like,
that's what I mean. Like, if there's one that really hit you, so it didn't have the heavy hitters for you, it sounds like.
Can't believe they didn't announce any Ace Attorney. I mean, Ace Attorney, any Rhythm Heaven. It was like the perfect opportunity, but they botched the heck.
It actually really was a perfect opportunity.
The shadow drop.
Because I think, yeah, well, they can't. How many things are going to shadow drop in one day? Because we got Metroid, we got just everything's out at once, and then they don't release anything for the rest of 2023. Done. But no, I do think, to your point, this was kind of the perfect direct for something like that. Because one thing I liked about it was obviously there are heavy hitters for the broad audience, right? Like we knew they'd be like Tears of the Kingdom and Pikmin, as you're saying, you know, that's great, but to be expected. A peek at DLC for like Splatoon and Xenoblade and Mario Kart, like naturally we're going to get that. In fact, to go on a tangent real quick, because I don't think we're going to bring up Mario Kart again, that Yoshi's Island track in Wave 4 looks spectacular. Like it looks so good. Like I love how they just took the title screen rotating island and literally made a track out of it and then added Yoshi's Island elements like the little question mark clouds that if you throw an eye at, it's going to spawn something like in the game. Like it looked like the most creative track in the DLC yet, and I'm really excited for it. But anyway, the point I was getting at is what stood out to me is like if you were a specific Nintendo gamer in the early to mid 2000s, this direct, it felt like elevated in a way. Like, and Rhythm Heaven would have slotted right into that perfectly because it's like 2006 or so, right? So it's like right in that era. Like it was a good show for like the masses, but I feel like it was a great show for a specific level of Nintendo fan at a specific age. I mean, we already kind of named a few, but like Metroid Prime, you know, Advance Wars being back on the calendar, a Ghost Trick, like we were saying, Etrian Odyssey,
I guess.
Baten Kaitos 1 and 2. What was that?
Pikmin, kind of.
Yeah, Pikmin as well. Yeah, even remember Style Savvy on the DS? So that weird fashion game that like randomly was at the top of the show. Like the game's not weird, but it was weird that was so early in the show. Same developer, Style Savvy, just a different publisher, which is why they're calling it Fashion Dreamer instead. But like that's from that era. Like the inclusion of all those GBA games, including IPs, you know, people thought Nintendo would never talk about again, like Golden Sun or like Professor Layton, like you said. I mean, Level 5 in general, never mind Professor Layton, Level 5 in general seemed to have a big Square Enix-style presence in this direct after so many years of basically being silent. And they were a huge player in like mid-2000s Nintendo gaming. And that's not even including previously announced games that resurfaced in this one, like Mega Man Battle Network Collection or that Tales of Symphonia remaster. Like the whole thing was so of that era. But I don't know, it just like it just really clicked with me. And I think for a subset of people who played a ton of GBA, GameCube, and early to mid, let's say, DS, they were like in that sweet spot with this presentation. And even if you weren't one of those gamers, I feel like the variety of what those revived IPs offered in terms of gameplay, combined with the new stuff show, of course, like it really made a very diverse lineup when you compare it to the last direct where all we got were like, you know, half a dozen farming sims. So I was quite happy with the presentation for that reason. Like it just felt, one, the nostalgia notes were good, and two, it felt like, I don't know, just diverse and interesting, and you didn't really know what was going to come next. And there's all these IPs like, oh, Baten Kaitos, I haven't heard of that in like 15, 20 years. That's cool. And I do think, but well, I guess the first question is,
but I never really knew what its deal was.
It's a RPG that was on the GameCube, and it was card-based. Not like Marvel Snap card-based, but like card-based. Well, kind of Marvel Snap card-based. But yeah, it was a... I did say Marvel Snap. Yeah, we have to weave it into the episode somehow. I was saying, yeah, that Baten Kaitos was kind of Marvel Snappy in terms of like you had RPG battles, but you build a deck and use characters from the deck, and that's how you do the battles. And they're real-time battles, but you're using a deck. So it's not quite obviously Marvel Snap, but it's card-based. But yeah, it was a GameCube exclusive back in like 2004, and then I think 2006, right at the end of the GameCube's life. And I would never have guessed that it would get a remaster, but here we are. Yeah, I do think part of the reason maybe why a game like Bait and Chaos gets a remaster now is the beauty of a system later in its life cycle. And I tweeted something about this too right after Direct, but the beauty of a system later in its life cycle, and one thing I always appreciate about that, is once a console has a big enough player base to support these types of games, it's a really cool opportunity to let smaller IPs shine and experiment with new things. I mean, Angel, you evoked Rhythm Heaven, right? That, on the 3DS, was in the twilight years of the 3DS, they did Mega Mix. They did stuff like Project Steam in the twilight years of the 3DS, which I know people were like, what is this? I enjoyed it. Yeah, but like twilight years of the GameCube, we got like Custom Robo and Chibi Robo. Like it's these back years of a system is when things get like experimental and weird, or little IPs you forgot come back and have a real chance to actually like do well, even if they're niche. So it's kind of cool that Switch is at that point. There's like 100 million. Actually, Nintendo put out their latest financials. There's 122.5, I think, million Switches now out there. So that's a lot of opportunity that I feel helped make this Direct lineup what it was, which was kind of cool. Like they were able to go for all these little weird pockets because there's so many people that could pick it up anyway. So it made for a fun show, I thought. Although probably the most fun, and you evoked it, Angel, the Shadow Drops, the double whammy, Metroid Prime Remastered on the eShop, Game Boy and GBA games joining Switch Online.
Yeah, it is cool for getting those, but because I've had the ambassador program that I regularly took advantage of a couple times a year, and also I keep my Game Boy Color and Game Boy games pretty close to me. Like I still, if anything, ever since I got the Analog Pocket, I've been playing them a lot more, including Kirby's Tilt and Tumble, which is going to be added eventually. So that announcement was like cool, but it was like, oh damn, well, it's like it means nothing to me, but awesome that we finally have that at least.
It finally means something to me. Like it's been, when did we talk about it? I think maybe it's when we were talking Metroid Dread, but I can finally play Fusions. Metroid
in the near
Fusion.
future.
Yeah,
in the very near future.
Legally.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
Yeah. And not only playing it legally, but
Cap.
like this, I've never played
Zelda.
Minish Cap, but I'm excited. I never had the opportunity to play Super Mario Land 2 6 Golden Coins. I own Super Mario Land 1. And I jumped straight to Wario Land, but I never got like the one where Wario's introduced in between. So I don't remember if that was in the ambassador program for 3DS. If it was, I never touched it. But now I'm actually like, oh, look at that. I can actually like for real just do it. And I think that the thing is, Angel, I know you were saying that like you have the ambassador game. Well, I can't compare it to your Analog Pocket, but I think the thing that's worth noting here is the emulator, like what Nintendo put in to make these Game Boy and Game Boy Advance games play on the Switch is actually like really high quality. Really, both Shadow Drops are high quality in terms of like the options they provide. Because for Switch Online, for Game Boy, you've got 3 screen hues to choose from. So if you want to be the puke green, like pea green, or if you want pea soup green, or if you want to be like the natural gray, or if you want to be the Game Boy Color like palette. Only the default palette. They don't give you the deeper like tint options, but nonetheless, you get the 3 different options. There's this thing called Classic Feel, which I didn't even know was a thing, but I was reading about it. Did you know the Game Boy didn't actually run at 60 frames per second? It ran at like 59.7 or something. So some games, to maximize the limited storage on the cartridge, would like flicker their graphics at times instead of doing a full animation because it wouldn't be picked up, but saved them some memory. So if you play it on the Switch, it runs at 60 by default, so you see those flickers, but if you turn on Classic Feel, it will slow it down to the 59.7 or 57.9 or whatever, and make it so it looks more like how you remember or how the developers intended. And apparently Nintendo did the same thing with the coloring. So if you're playing whatever screen option you're playing, they're not going with the pixel perfect colors as they were coded in the game. They're overlaying something that makes them match the hue as you would see it through the screen.
Yeah, I can't
because a
see
common
any of
issue,
that.
I guess, is the games are too bright in reality with raw pixels. So, like, they're really putting effort. There's Rumble support in Game Boy Advance games if they support Game Boy Player on GameCube. Like, there's so many little nips and tucks they did.
Okay, well, very much appreciated. I do
Yeah.
want to see
and
Wario Land 4 on there eventually. I mean, they keep
I'm
it
sure
short,
they
and I've
get
beaten it many times, but playing it on the TV would be really fun.
It was interesting that they went straight to 3.
Yeah,
Three's
well,
the only one that I played.
I've never played 3, so I mean, maybe there's a reason they went straight
well, I
to 3.
mean, 1 is a Mario game, and I guess 2 is the only other one, so they really only skipped 1 Wario Land.
Right.
So, yeah, so not too many, but yeah. I mean, that is apparently one of the best ones.
Yeah. I mean, Kevin, is it good? You said you played it.
It's fun. It's interesting.
That's all it needs to be.
The final character gives me some nightmares, but the final boss gives me some nightmares. But
So, have either of you actually tried any of the Game Boy games yet on Switch or download?
I did. I booted
Metro
up.
Prime?
I booted up Minish Cap, and I forgot what other game, but yeah, I played it a little bit just to kind of sit on the biscuit. Oh, and WarioWare, and yeah, it was fun for a couple minutes. But like, I already had started a game on my 3DS with Minish Cap, so I was like, do I start over or play on TV or yeah, I don't know.
I forgot that I have to buy the expansion pass for this.
If you only for the GBA games, the original Game Boy are included with regular.
Well, yeah, I want to play Minish Cap, and I want to play Fusion.
Gotcha. I myself so far only went to go confirm something, and I didn't actually think it would be there to the extent it was. But so if you do want something that's fresh, Angel, Super Mario Advance 4, Super Mario Brothers 3, one of the worst named games of all time because that's a really confusing name. Either way, so back in the day, they had e-reader cards. And you could swipe the cards and get levels in the game. They're all in there. And when I say all, I mean all, because the U.S. did not get all the e-reader cards. There were some that were only released in Japan. But all, I think, 30 of those levels, it was like 8 pages when I scrolled through it, all of them are baked in. So you have 30 all new levels with all said and done. So there is something fresh in there. I think they may have done the same thing in the Wii U Virtual Console version you could buy. But I don't think... If this was ever one of the Ambassador games, I don't remember, but if it was not. These were not in there. So there is something, and nor can you access them outside of a Wii U, I guess. So
yeah,
like,
I don't think any of the advanced games were part of the Ambassador program.
Yeah. So this is actually like a kind of fresh thing, even if you are Game Boy'd out with your other access points, if you will. And we didn't even mention, by the way, like we're talking about the quality of what they're doing. Like local and online support for Game Boy and GBA is if you use the link cable. Like that's kind of cool. Yeah, like they really put some effort in, and I feel like that there's like a duality with these shadow drops because Metroid also really put some effort in. I mean, there are like a million different ways to play it. Like if you boot up Metroid Prime from what I don't have it yet. I'm waiting for the physical. From what I was reading, you got dual stick controls. I mean, they straight up said that in the presentation. You've got the original controls. You've got motion pointer-based controls, and then if you want to go through the effort of plugging in a GameCube controller to your Switch via whatever adapter. Do a couple controls tweaks in the options and turn the button layout, and it works just like the original Metroid. Like that's a lot of options for playing Metroid, and I think they added a color blindness mode. So like they really like these shadow drops. They were very meticulous with making sure they're of high quality, and maybe that's because they've been working on them for years. I mean, these were the games that constantly or projects that were like constantly rumored.
No, that's actually one of the most things I'm most excited about. Just the fact that we're no longer going to get like Metroid Prime Remaster tweets that come out all the time. Because like, oh my god, like,
yeah, you're telling me about that tweet where like they summarize like 5 years of like Metroid's almost
since like 2018. It's like it's going to come out this year. Oh, rumored to come out this year. It's like 2018, 20. I mean, yeah, there's 4 different years, and you know, if you say it every year, you're going to be right eventually. But
eventually, you're right. Yeah, assuming there's any truth to it, which it turned out there was. But yeah, the fact that after so many years of both that and like the false starts of Game Boy coming to Switch Online, like they found codes for the emulator like years ago in the source code and stuff. Like the fact that they weren't just in the same direct, but shadow dropped back to back in the presentation seconds apart. It's really cool we got them, but it also gave this kind of funny vibe of Nintendo. And I think I tweeted something to this effect, but of Nintendo basically being like, fine, just shut up, take them, be happy, here, we're done with this, take it. Like, it was just kind of a fight. Like, they just sort of dumped it on us. Like, you know what? Take it. We're tired of this. So, that I thought was kind of funny. But it made for a really strong, like, afterglow of the Direct, if you will, because that's a lot of stuff to explore. And so many super high-quality games that you could just instantly play, which was kind of cool.
Not too many farming sims. That was a little concerning.
None.
There was
the closest I feel like
there was one toward the end that I think had farming, but obviously it's not.
Fantasy Life. Yeah, Fantasy Life is like
some extra powers or something like that.
Yeah. Fantasy Life Island Girl with 1,000-year trap. I don't remember what it's called, but it was a long name. It's basically level 5's Animal Crossing mixed with like Rune Factory. Yeah, or Story of the Seasons or Take Your Pick. Yeah. But yeah, I feel like I have like one sort of zoomed out thought about the Direct, and then I think we're kind of done here with this topic. I was gonna say that.
I feel like it's a nice point to change out to something else.
No, I want to make my point because I'm gonna make my point. No, I was gonna say that.
All right.
I was gonna say that one thing that surprised me with this Direct is how actually true to its description. Like, Nintendo actually focused on the first half of 2023. Like, normally, Nintendo would set up a showcase with a given promised time frame, right?
Isn't Pikmin coming out in July?
Yeah, but they don't have
That's
any...
not the first half, though.
You're right. It's 3 weeks after the first half ends. But my point is, okay, fine. But what they normally do is they drop or tease a couple new first-party announcements that exist beyond that window. Like, they will signal something coming out later in the year, like holiday or fall. Here, they did announce new stuff, but they just kind of doubled down on the original window. Like, the lineup we knew before the Direct already seemed solid for the first half of the year, right? Like, we got Fire Emblem last month, we get Kirby in a couple weeks, Bayonetta Origins next month, Zelda in May. Like, that would traditionally be a pretty standard first half for Nintendo. And then, you know, all these games are million-seller franchises, so it's not like nothing's going to sell. So one would or could think that, yeah, they'll show us Pikmin with a summer release as they did and, you know, tease out stuff for later in the year. But Nintendo then doubled their first half. Like, literally, they went from 4 releases to, if you include the ones that just dropped, like Metroid and Game Boy stuff, they now have 7 releases all before summer. And I think really the only thing that I remember them even teasing out further was DLC for existing games. Like, we saw a hint of what's coming in Splatoon. We know there's another wave for Xenoblade. We know there's another wave for Fire Emblem. And if you think about even a step further from that, really all the first-party content shown besides Zelda and Pikmin isn't even made by Nintendo's own teams. It's teams like Intelligent Systems or HAL or Monolith or, in the case of Advance Wars, Way Forward. And I feel like in any normal circumstance, this would suggest they're gearing up for a rather immediate Switch successor. You know, they're moving their resources. But I feel like, I don't know, like, Nintendo's in a really unique state of flux today. Like, if this was the old random Nintendo show where we take it upon ourselves to actually, like, decode their choices and figure out what they're doing, I'd be stumped. Like, on the one hand, we're entering year 7 into the Switch's life next month. I mean, Ken, you're talking about how it's getting long in the tooth hardware-wise. And, you know, $70, it better be, like, a perfect game because the hardware is that old.
It doesn't have to be a perfect game. It just has to run.
Perfectly run. Perfect running.
Damn,
yes.
trying to shove things into Kevin's mouth.
Perfect running. I just need it to not constantly be under. It better not look like
Fair.
PowerPoint.
Fair. Okay. I apologize for overstaying your take on that. But yeah, the point is, year 7 of the Switch, that's to be expected. That means the hardware's long in the tooth. That usually means we're going to be turning over to a new system. But then on the other hand, Nintendo just put out those financials, and they still think they're selling 18 million systems this fiscal year. That's admittedly down 1 million from their prediction going into the holidays, and they're saying they softened it due to softened demand, for lack of a better word. But also, like, overall game sales for Nintendo were down a hair from what they were expecting, which they attribute to, I think, what they literally just said was straight up lack of variety in their lineup last year, like just not that many. But still, huge numbers they're working with. And you don't really switch to an entire new platform when you're selling 18 million and you have Scarlet and Violet being the 4th bestseller selling Pokemon in 7 weeks, and you have Switch software collectively, I think it's sold just shy of 1 billion to date now. That's billion with a B. And, you know, already the game sales on Switch have exceeded every single total on every Nintendo platform ever. Never mind the Switch itself, like we were talking about, it's at 122 million, which makes it the 3rd best-selling system of all time for any company. So, like, they're hitting these crazy numbers. They still have that momentum. And as we were talking about last episode, it's been reported they're planning to increase Switch production going into this next fiscal year, which, you know, starts in April, which means they have Zelda in May, probably with a special edition. They have the Mario movie and the theme park to drum up sales. Like, this isn't what I'm getting at is this isn't a Nintendo that fits the pattern we're used to really whatsoever. Like, this is uncharted territory. So the fact that Direct did legitimately only focus on the first half plus 3 weeks for Pikmin. Thank you, Angel. But given the fact that they did that and all, they focused on the first half for all their first party news. The internal teams are basically radio silent beyond July right now. This is the first time I really don't feel like we know what to expect from Nintendo. Like, the back half could be dead. Some online rumors are suggesting Nintendo's got a really light back half and they could ride it out with like evergreens or smaller releases.
Seems like the
But
most
if that's the
likely
case,
path.
yeah, but if that's the case, like, why put Metroid out in February when you can use it to pad the fall unless there's other games? Or maybe they have big surprises. Like, in which case, does that mean Nintendo's internal teams are cooking up more Switch stuff on that older hardware and a Switch 2 is actually even further out? Like, it's really the first time in a really long time that I have such a, like, up-in-the-air feeling of what to expect from Nintendo. Like, I have no idea. It's new terrain. I have no idea what they're doing, and it's interesting that we have reached that point because they're usually very predictable.
Man, I'm not ready
so yeah,
for a Switch
it'll be
2.
really interesting to see. What was that?
I'm not ready for a Switch 2.
It seems like Nintendo might not be either. So
Yeah, I just want Switch to go
this
on.
is the Steam Deck.
that was kind of what I was thinking when you're making the point about, like, if Zelda doesn't run particularly smooth. Like, at what point does that hinder third-party support, the long-in-the-tooth hardware?
Do you think maybe they have a hidden hardware under their sleeve for the release of Tears of the Kingdom?
I don't think they have
No
new
shot.
hardware. They definitely will have a special aesthetic of hardware. Like, they'll put out a Zelda Special Edition. It's already been leaked, seemingly. But there's no way they're launching new hardware with no lead. They're not going to Sega Saturn this. They can't do it with no lead
with just
time.
like 3 months. Assuming it doesn't get delayed, like no shot.
And there's no way it's getting delayed at this point, I don't think. Unless the game, like, breaks or, like, they find some bug that, like, completely is detrimental to the experience. This seems... We're inching very close to when it goes into production, like when it goes gold. I would imagine it would be in the next 6 to 8 weeks. So I'm pretty sure they're hitting that May 12th date. But we will see. Yeah, it's very strange to be in a situation where who knows what's going on. Really, I feel like if I can riff on this for a second, I feel like the whole industry is in this abnormal state of flux. Like, I mean, it's just everything we're used to how gaming has been, like, seems a little looser now, which is kind of fun because you don't know what to expect. But, like, the death of E3, that was reported essentially 2 weeks ago, that Sony, Microsoft, IGN is claiming Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo, who was one of the most vocal supporters of the show forever, are all not attending this year. Maybe we could have predicted that. Like, it's hard to restart a show that's been dead, but it does open up all sorts of questions about, like, what's the cadence to expect for how new announcements occur? Like, when do you announce hardware or games or whatever? Because you got Summer Game Fest, which has an in-person presentation this year, so that's, go Summer Game Fest. But, like, it's not like every company needs to have as many games. You don't have a showcase like a Direct or a State of Play. You just give them a game, and then that's it. What was that?
I'm just so sorry for your loss. I can't believe, like,
E3?
you're going to have to do
Dude,
it.
I'm bummed. Yeah, I mean, I feel like you guys are probably...
Are you going to go to, like...
to E3?
I mean, it's been dead forever.
Yeah, so
it's been there for a long time as far as I'm concerned.
Why are you bummed?
I think a couple reasons I'm bummed is, one, like I'm saying, I kind of like knowing the cadence of things. Like, I like knowing June's like video game Christmas for a week, and I can go to this convention, and all the Nintendo people are there that I could potentially bump into because I'm weird. But more importantly, it feels like kind of a Nintendo happening. Like, the center of Nintendo's world is right there, and I can be part of that, which is really fun. I used to always say I really like it because Nintendo goes all out and makes like a mini theme park in the convention center. Like, they do really cool booths. They have, like, it's just a cool experience. But, like, we have a real Nintendo theme park opening next week, like, right up the street here. So if there's a time for Nintendo to stop doing E3, maybe this is the time. Like, okay, I have my real Nintendo theme park now. I don't need your little fake one.
So is it just going to the show floor?
It's both. It's like I was saying initially. It's also just knowing the cadence that there's gonna be like a lot of fun Nintendo news happening and stuff every June that second week.
Sure,
so I like that.
But
and then I like being able to experience it firsthand.
You're just assuming that we're not going to get that news in June. June could still very well be E3.
So
in spirit with all these game companies announcing something.
And that's why that's what's kind of this weird state of flux. I'm saying, like, we don't know anymore. Like, it was always a sure thing. And Microsoft has said they'll do a showcase. Sony has been radio silent. Nintendo last year basically skipped their June thing altogether. They could have done a direct. The closest we got was the last week of June, a third-party partner showcase that had, like, not a lot in it.
Yeah, I forgot
there is Summer
they
Game
didn't
Fest.
do something.
Yeah, so like it's just weird because like there could very well be, and not knowing is kind of some of the fun of it for sure. Because I feel like in general, marketing cycles for games are now all over the place, which means you don't have to be like, oh, that second week of June, I can't wait for something. Like I'm thinking, like Hi-Fi Rush on Xbox, like the way they just kind of surprise released it. You just go on Game Pass and you can instantly play it, and then they let word of mouth carry it, and it's been a big success for them. You can do stuff like that now. You can bring back old games. We were talking about like Last of Us last episode, how older games are now like as relevant as new ones in terms of being marketed. So you don't necessarily need to have a June with an E3 or similar months to still be excited about what's coming in gaming. And there is still Summer Game Fest for a smaller scale of that. But it's weird not knowing when to expect. It's like not knowing like, oh yeah, so the Super Bowl is actually, this episode goes up on the Super Bowl, but kind of like, so when's the gaming Super Bowl? Is there one? Like you're kind of like building your anticipation towards a thing that may or may not be there, which is fine. It just feels like we're kind of in this weird limbo where we don't really know what's gonna happen.
I'm sure we'll still get stuff in June. Like
we'll get some stuff. Yeah, I just don't know.
Because these companies aren't at E3 and they're not playing ball with the ESA doesn't mean that they're not going to do anything around that time.
Which is so funny because the ESA, like, they're all members of, so they're like not playing ball with themselves indirectly. But yes, I do think there will be stuff. It's just Nintendo's the big question mark because they definitely skipped last year. And at the time, everyone's like, oh, they skipped because they're not going to support Summer Game Fest. They want to support E3, but now they're also skipping E3. So it's like, what you doing, Nintendo? But like weirdly enough, the most concrete things I think we know about Nintendo now is there's a Direct in February, there's a Direct in September, and there's Indie Showcase typically in August and December. Like those are kind of the patterns that are now emerged, but even then, who knows if there's any truth to them because they're not anchored to anything. So, which again, there's something fun in that. Something like Hi-Fi Rush coming out of nowhere and getting that buzz is fun. Something like Metroid Prime Remastered coming out of nowhere is fun. But yeah, it's just weird not to like have like the tectonic plates are shifting and you're kind of just along for the ride of wherever they go, which is fine. It's just different. So that's one thing that I thought was kind of interesting.
Media cycle is going to be interesting to follow now. Well, I guess from the podcast side. But,
yeah, and that's the thing is like we maybe indirectly picked the perfect time to not have to like cover gaming in the same way. Because like we would honestly plan like, all right, E3's coming up. Do we do a bonus episode? Like, how do we work that? Do we split it? We did that in the early years. It'd be like, okay, who's going to E3 a month? How long are we all going? Like, there's a lot of like figuring that out and getting press passes and that sort of thing. And now it's just kind of like, if things are just going to drop when they drop, we're on equal footing with everyone else in terms of how we choose to cover it. Like, it's fine. Like, I feel like before we're definitely like, okay, we need to make sure. Like, I don't know if I ever even expressed this to you guys, but I think about, like, all right, how do I go about promoting the podcast to ramp us up for around the time E3 press comes out so I can give them the most accurate but also highest metrics so we can get the access. So don't have to worry about that anymore. So, like, and it's just, like, such an even playing field in terms of people just listen to what they want to listen to. So, yeah, it's interesting. Also interesting, while we're talking about the industry in flux, what is going on with game as service or live service games? Like they're all, it's like the bubble's popping.
What's going on with games as a service?
Yeah. What is it about games as services?
So no longer a sustainable model, I guess, unless you're Fortnite.
I think that, yeah, that must be it, right? Because like for those who don't know,
it's still go ahead, Jason.
If you're big enough.
If you're big enough, essentially.
Yeah, which it's I feel like MMORPG.
So it only works if it does. Cool.
Yeah. Like try it, but like be ready for failure. It's a bubble and it's popping a little because like for those who don't know what we're talking about, in the span of a week, Apex Legends Mobile, Battlefield Mobile, Crossfire X, Echo VR, Rumbleverse, and maybe the one most notable to three of us, Knockout City, all announced they were shutting down in the same week. And you know, for what was one of the biggest business models in gaming for like the last half decade or more. That's a pretty big deal that like all of them were shutting down in the same week or announcing in the same week. So yeah, that's another one where it's just like it feels like there's such this established, while relatively new, established model for how a type of game that can exist, and just poof, it's sort of all dying off now. So except the big heavy hitters. So that's another one where it's like, oh, we think we know how gaming works. We think we know what to expect, and nope, now there's gonna be some other revenue model that's gonna come in because they obviously need to find a way to, maximize revenue off the back of folks who don't want to pay a lot of money up front. So if it's not this, what will it be? And I don't think we know yet because, it's still too new. But do any of those games shutting down bother you? Or are any you're kind of sad to see go?
I'm a little sad to see Rumbleverse go because I was kind of curious about it for a while, but just never got around to playing it, unfortunately. But
of that list, I would say Rumbleverse and probably Apex Legends Mobile were the most shocking announcements to me because Rumbleverse is epic and they have endless money from Fortnite and Fall Guys. So the fact that they didn't give it longer or try and
I haven't heard someone
boost it
describe
with,
a game as epic in a while.
crossovers. Well, the developer, but sure, or the publisher actually. I think Iron Galaxy was the developer, but either way, it's kind of crazy to me. Or no, Ray at Dawn I think was the publisher. Either way, it's kind of crazy to me that a game that had that much backing, and even Apex Legends, which I think was more internal politics than anything else, caused it to shut down. Those were big games. Apex Legends was Apple's App Store Game of the Year last year. Now it's just gone, or will be in May. It's just odd. Hey, you gonna miss Kevin?
Wait, I'm sorry. Say that again.
Any of those games shutting down? Are you gonna miss any of those?
Obviously, Rumbleverse,
Knockout.
not Rumbleverse. Knockout City is
I think that's mine.
that hurts the most.
Definitely too.
I do think it's great. So the majority of these announcements are like, "Yep, we're turning it off. We're keeping whatever money you spent," which you could argue both cases for. It's just going to go away. You can never play it again. But Knockout, I do really appreciate that. One, they're not just we're going to fade away. They're going they're doing this huge new season send-off thing where they're just going to go crazy with everything they've ever done is going to be back in this season plus some new stuff. And then when they shut it down, they're going to actually put out a private server version on PC. So you can actually still play Knockout City if you want to continue playing Knockout City. You just have to organize it yourself. Which is a lot better than every other game as service game shutdown. I don't think anyone else has been here's the game anyway. Because that to me is what really sucks about this and is most parallel to the MMORPG bubble of the mid 2000s is when a game trend ends, Plastic Instrument games or the gluttony of first person shooters in the Xbox 360 era, when that trend settles down, you still have what you bought from that trend. You can still play Guitar Hero. You can still go back and play whatever random first person shooter from 2004 is of interest to you. But with game and service titles, because they're the service, they pull the plug, that's it. Those experiences that could have become one of your favorite games, we put a lot of time to Knockout City. That could never be played again in theory. But at least in the case of Knockout City, they're giving you kind of an olive branch. So I can appreciate that on a very high level. And I'm curious to see what they do next. Because they're saying Knockout City might not be dead. Just that the game in its current form is dead. The franchise may live on and may do
They just
else,
lost their publisher or their...
Well, they lost their publisher a long time ago.
Money revenue?
It sounds like, I think they were masking it a bit, but they put out a 5-6 paragraph statement where it sounded so Valence Studios is a developer and they're small, they're indie. They worked with EA to launch the game as a paid experience. Then they decided to flip it to free to play and they themselves are managing all the free to play. And I think reading between the lines, they're saying the audience wasn't quite big enough to sustain it, but they also were saying that in order to make kind of a better version of the game, instead of just incremental little things on the current game, which in theory means a bigger audience, they don't have the bandwidth to keep this while doing the next. So they're going to shut this down, do kind of a post-mortem of it, and then take those learnings and apply them to whatever their next thing is, which may or may not still be a Knockout City-related project. So that sounds like a lot of sugarcoating to basically be yo, there aren't enough for you to sustain this. But I don't know. Maybe they could have kept trucking along if they found a way to use what limited resources they have to kind of tweak the current game. But it sounds like it was either we stop and restart or we're dead in the water. So
I mean, if they had started the turtle crossovers a lot earlier, the game would have been in a much better state.
Yep.
They would have got more revenue because weren't they $25 or something for those skins?
20. for 20. For 20.
That's what's surprising, actually, is they do a crossover of that scale, and they get a license that big, and then they immediately shut down after that. Like, I wonder how much of that Turtle collab was actually, like, the Hail Mary for them. Like, the final chance to see if they could turn it around before they turn it off.
Yeah.
We'll never know, of course, but... Meanwhile, though, if you like Valen Studios, they did Mario Kart Live Home Circuit, and they're now doing a Hot Wheels version of that same experience for PlayStation and Xbox. I read the other day, so that they do have enough bandwidth to do that at least. And you basically, like, it's a little Hot Wheel with a camera. You could drive around using your smartphone or PlayStation, or I think it might just be PlayStation, not Xbox, actually. But what's kind of interesting on like Mario Kart. The car isn't what you see when you play the game. They are actually, no, it's just like Mario Kart. They're mapping a digital version of the car on top, so you can have whatever car you want and stuff. So there's like 20 different Hot Wheels you can collect and things like that. But it's also $130, so there's that.
Wow.
Yeah, same price as Zelda's Collector's Edition. But anyway, I think that's all for the Direct. You guys have any Direct thoughts at this point, or did I wear us all down?
Nothing direct.
So I'm looking at the list of topics to see what else we want to talk about. You guys aren't giving me a whole lot to work with here. Shout out what you want to talk about. There's not much here.
I mean, I
was
practically talking the whole time last time. But I mean, I guess I mean, like last time I pretty much the whole time that was pretty much all my topics from the Japan trip.
That's true. That's true. You did a rare thing. Our wavelength, like if you look at our waveforms of the episode, I was like not the highest. You were like 80% of it.
Let's see. I mean, I guess I could talk about just a little about the concert I went to yesterday.
You went to a concert?
Yeah, a rock show for a band called the Last Rockstars, and it was really cool. It was super awesome, just getting like a huge showcase of different, I guess, instruments and styles. It was mainly like rock and roll, but you know, there was some piano thrown in there, some violin, some acoustic, a lot of electric guitar. It was just amazing. Not to mention just being able to hear like Red Swan live was pretty awesome. But
okay, we should give some context. I have to look this up, and I don't know if anyone else realizes this. They are from Japan, right?
Yep.
Okay.
I thought you were just edit that.
Context.
I thought that was it.
I thought there was more I was going to say, and then there was no more as I was reading it. Do they do so? What is Red? What is the thing you said you heard live? Is that a song of theirs? Is it from something?
Red Swan. It's one of the intros from Attack on Titan. That's kind of how
It's the worst one.
It's how I kind of discovered them, but that intro is my favorite one.
It's the worst one. Oh, I hate Red Swan so much. I hate Red Swan so much.
Nah, I love it. It's easily for me. It's like by far my favorite. I would like drop all the other ones just for that one. And I've pretty much been listening to it since
go ahead, Angel.
And I've pretty much been like listening to it pretty frequently since like 2018 or since like it came out.
So
and through that artist, I was able to just like find their other music without really realizing it. And then I was like, oh, I guess I'm a fan of this dude. And yeah, and then the concert came up, and I was like, oh, definitely gonna go see it. It's like not gonna miss this chance.
The positioning you did of this story, I feel like it was very much like, yeah, so I saw this band. Like, I ended up going to a show last night. I saw this band called Crush 40, and they had, like, guitars, and they had some piano. And then they played this song called Live and Learn, and never mentioning, you know, the Sonic band. Like, you just, like, left out that key part. But,
so
yeah, no, that sounds very fun.
So, back to Red Swan. I talk about how much I like consistency. I think on my first episode that I ever appeared on this podcast, I talked about how much I hated how Mission Impossible cover arts on Voodoo.
Yeah.
So Attack on Titan used the same artist for its first 3 openings. Come opening 4, Red Swan, they used a different artist. And then for opening 5, they went back to the same artist that they used for the first 3 openings. Bull crap. And that's why I hate Red Swan.
Oh, that's
also
why?
just don't like this. I also just don't like the song, and I think it's very melodramatic.
To me, it just felt like it just had the most emotion. And also, just like, I'm a huge sucker for piano. It has the electric guitar in there. I don't know. To me, it was perfect. Like, I think until I heard that one, like I enjoyed the first theme, and then the second and third one just sounded almost too samey to me.
Oh,
Like
don't you dare talk
like,
crap about Sasaga, yo.
like they're great, and I definitely liked them, but there was a point where I'm like, which one is this one? Is this the first one, the second one, the third one? I mean, they kind of have a progression almost. Actually, I think the first two are literally just one long track just cut in half. Because it almost feels like they just like
No, they're very
go together.
very different songs.
Because I remember on the soundtrack, I remember listening to it. Like the first one, you could almost get the beginning of the second one, but if you just listen to them back to back, it's like a seamless transition. But yeah. I mean, what can I say? I love Red Swan. It's my favorite one. I got to see it live, so definitely super happy right now.
Actually, now that I
where'd
think
they
about it, it's
play?
not my least favorite one. I think The Rumbling is my least favorite one.
But yeah.
Where was the show, Angel?
The Palladium.
Oh, nice. That's a really cool venue. I like
And
Palladium.
the fact that like Yoshiki, basically the main person behind Red Swan, and I guess had like he would like switch between the drums and the guitar like mid song, just to like do both.
That's cool. That's cool.
And he also like bust out the violin like once, and he also had like a crazy drum solo. Like they just showed a wide variety of instruments. It was super cool. Easily my
Nice.
favorite concert so far. And just like that.
You know,
that
I wasn't
kind.
going to bring it up, but since we're talking music and they're my favorite band, I have to mention Linkin Park has a new song in the year 2023,
What?
and it's pretty great. Yeah. They are releasing a 20th anniversary of their album Meteora, a box set, in April. And on that box set, which comes with like a bajillion things, like literally it's like 5 vinyls, 4 CDs, like a Linkin Park logo stencil, art lithographs, a poster, like it's a ton of stuff. But anyway, on this collection is something they're calling Lost Demos, which is 14 unreleased songs, some of which are demos and some of which are a little beyond.
Can you still pick that up?
What?
Yeah, the Meteora.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you can. Yeah. At least last I looked. Yeah.
I'll be
Even the
picking that
Hybrid Theory one, when they did it 2 years ago, it
Don't
was
care about that
available. They
album.
called it like, what?
Don't care about that album.
Oh, I'm just saying, my point was that one was available well after launch of it. So, yeah, I think you get Meteor, no problem. But it's a really cool set. But the cool thing is one of the songs, which they're now releasing as a lead single and is like getting radio play and is #1 on iTunes at the moment. It's like 2003 all over again, is a unreleased Finnish song from the Meteor sessions called Lost with new vocals by Chester. Well, new to us. They were from 2003. But it's a whole Finnish song. It was done. They had a 2003 version. They decided it didn't quite fit the album. And then what they did is to re-release it now, Mike Shinoda, the other singer in the band, for those who don't know, the rapper and producer and every other thing involved, he basically remastered the song to be a little more like fitting for contemporary times in terms of like the levels, like how are the electronic elements versus the guitars or stuff like that. And yeah, it's like on the radio like every hour here in LA. And it came out yesterday. And it sounds straight out of that era, but like a little more poppy and modern slightly, but it like really, yeah. I'm a very happy Linkin Park fan because I did not think I would be hearing fresh Linkin Park music, let alone getting 14 songs, many of which with vocals we've never heard before. Some are demos, so I expect the mixing to be meh. But like, there's at least a couple on there that are like full finished songs. It sounds like. So
Yeah, look at you.
that was very exciting. It was very exciting. Yeah, because I knew they were doing the box set. Like that was rumored, that was leaked. But then they're just like, oh, and here's a new song. I'm like, what? And even the music video is really cool. What they did for the music video is because I don't know if you guys remember from the Meteor days, but like, one, there were all those like anime music videos set to Linkin Park, right? And then Linkin Park kind of dipped into that themselves, and a couple of their videos had some like anime influence. So this one, they had a couple artists make original like anime style animations, and then they trained some AI off those animations. And then they applied the AI to one of their live concert films from that era and basically animated themselves using this original art that's in the video as reference point for the AI to make the anime versions of the band. So they're able to do a video where they have like Chester and the rest of the band like looking like they're from 2003 because it's using footage from 2003, but they put it through the lens of how the rest of the video looks with this anime, so it feels like it's like modern or like new or wherever you want to think of it as, which is kind of a cool use of AI because they're still hiring artists and doing original work from artists, but then they're kind of playing with technology a little to make something old new again at the same time. So, yeah, so it was a very exciting day yesterday for me. And it's, by the way, like peak Linkin Park. I mean, I'm talking like, you know, Chester saying, then they have Mike Shinoda in the background doing like the whispers of what Chester said. You know what I'm talking about? Where it's just like, oh, I'm in pain. And he's like, so much pain. Like that sort of thing. Like it's so prototypical Linkin Park.
Meteora is my favorite Linkin Park album.
Meteora? More like mediocre.
It's the first
more like
album
you're
that
wrong.
I ever bought. Actually,
yeah,
between there's like 3 albums that I don't remember between which was my favorite, which was my first album. But I'm pretty sure Numb was the first music video I ever saw on Linkin Park on MTV.
Yeah, I feel like they were big with Hybrid Theory, and in the end is what everybody's songs, but Meteor is where they like really like peaked in terms of like their scale and reach and yeah. And I say as someone that does it, I think that I know we debated this before, Ken. I think Thousand Suns is their best record, but yes, Meteor definitely holds a special place in my heart too, and it's really cool to get new music from that time. That's like it felt like I was back in. It felt like I went back to 2003, but it also felt new. It was so weird to listen to. Like I don't even know, like just like the nostalgia for something I've never heard. It was really interesting. But yeah, if anyone's interested, it's called Lost, the new song, and it is available now.
And wow, not even sponsored. Well, all right.
Not even sponsored. And because it's not sponsored, here's a complaint. So I bought the Super Deluxe box set. It's $200, whatever. Don't judge me. I'm a big Linkin Park fan. But it doesn't come with a download of the single. So you get the whole box and they're like, yeah, we'll give you a download of the whole thing when it comes out, all 95 tracks or whatever. But if I want the single, I either had to buy it separately or just stream it or like I have to like, I can't get an MP3 of the single legally without paying more on top of the $200 that I already just put down before tax. Like what?
I mean, that makes a lot of sense, actually, if you think about it.
No, it doesn't. Everything you get usually an instant download of the single. So I don't know if that's an oversight or what, but Mike Shinoda, if you're listening to this,
happen
I'm sure
with
you're not.
the one for Hybrid Theory?
No, they gave you an instant download of one of the unreleased songs on the spot.
Gotcha. Because I was about to say, in this day and age, I don't know how much anybody would care, considering that you can just go to Spotify or Apple Music or Amazon Music. Like,
I just really like. I'm super as you know because you've been making fun of me about it, I'm super very much into like the data around my life. Like I check in everywhere on Swarm. I use like Last.fm to track my listening, and it bothers me that like if I have Lost and I stream it from Apple Music only, once I get the file in April and it starts counting in my iTunes app or my Apple Music app, like how many listens, that listen count's wrong because I've been listening to it since February at that point. So I want the file now so I can start the listen count now. And what do I do with these listen counts? Absolutely nothing. And what do I do with my check-ins? Barely anything. But I like having them. I like life
remember
logging,
Last.fm?
I have Last.fm. I still use it.
Yeah, that's
the
only place I would
but that's
really
the other
thing
is
your counts.
Yeah, but then they're like out of syncs, and iTunes will say one number because I have the file in April. But then if I do it but I do have Last.fm. I still use it. I could tell you right now, my top listened to artist on Last.fm last year, I think, was The Weeknd. Like I have all this data. I do nothing with it, but I like having it. It's like automatic blogging almost for me. Like I could go back and find what I listen to at any given time or whatever. I'm such a weirdo.
No.
Yeah, you are. When I realized that you checked into the Tacos Gavilan that we would go to all the time, that's where I was like, I've known this guy for many years now, and it just hit me that he's weird.
That's what took it? Everything else I've done in front of you over the years was like, yeah, this is normal, but the checking into Taco Gavilan is where I was like crossing the line.
Yeah, that's where I was like, okay, this guy needs help.
That's interesting. And I probably do need help. Here's the thing about checking in, which is to me kind of crazy about it, is I was checking in with you at places, like physically on my phone doing it, and you never noticed. Ever. Not that I'm saying you like creep on people's phones, but like you never noticed.
No, I would absolutely know. I know that you've been checking into places. But like,
oh, it's just that I checked in there.
When we go to like a fast food place, you know, right after one of our recording sessions, I'm thinking you're just going on Twitter. I'm not thinking you're going to Swarm and, you know, checking in.
But think about all that valuable data. Like, you now know collectively, we
That the
went to
government now
like the
has?
McDonald's by
You're a
his
really
old
easy
house.
person of stock, I guess.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. By the time anyone that wants to stalk me sees it, I'm already gone. Like, you have
Okay,
to be with me for it to be relevant.
So question for you on Swarm.
Yeah.
Do you have to be near the location for you to be able to check in?
Not exactly. You get more coins that do nothing. They used to have like a little economy in there that they drop,
my
but you
God.
get more coins if you're closer. But no, you can check in pretty much.
So if I really wanted
theoretically,
to,
you
I
could
could
be
be
checking
mayor anywhere?
What?
If I really wanted to, I could be mayor anywhere if I'm just persistent enough and just keep checking into places, even though I'm not
If
there.
you're a dick like that to us authentic
What are you
users,
the mayor of
yes,
again?
yeah. I'm not going to start listing off things because I don't need people just waiting for me there and being like, oh my God, it's your podcast. No offense, listeners. I would love if you did that, but also that'd be creepy. I'm mayor of like the most mundane things. I won't tell you which ones, but I'll name a few places, sure. I can't believe we're doing this. I mean, I can, but I also can't. Let's see. Hold on. Sorry. I was not prepared for this. I needed to grab my phone. Okay.
Bed Bath
I'm
and
mayor of
Beyond.
40 places. No. Wait. Bed Bath & Beyond.
He's probably checked into a few.
I have. I will not deny that. I am mayor of, most recently, a Habit Burger. I'm mayor of a
Flavortown?
Sweet Green, a Tender Greens, a Fresh Brothers, a Subway, a Rouse, a Jersey Mike's, an 85 Degrees Bakery, a Chick-fil-A, a Shake Shack, my wedding venue, because who else would check into a private venue before they're even at their wedding? Jimmy John's, a bagel place, a Walgreens, a Petco,
Why are you confused?
an Auntie Annie's pretzel. Oh, okay, I see how. An animal hospital because we had to take our cat to do some surgery a few times. A Wingstop. Basically, all the chains. I'm mayor of the most generic, like, fast casual chains. 3 Subways, as in 3 different Subway restaurants. And a McDonald's, and a Cold Stone, and a Starbucks, and some other stuff. An Italian restaurant, a Coffee Bean.
You need to rest.
I need help.
Yeah.
This is my plea for help. Anyone who is able to get through an hour of Nintendo Direct conversation gets to hear this plea for help, and that means I really value you helping me, whoever you are.
You use, I assume, a personal email address for this?
What?
I know how we're gonna get you help.
No, we're not going to start airing my email. First of all, if you really want to see, if anyone wants to really help me,
I wasn't asking for your email. I wasn't asking for your email.
I was going to say jokingly, but not. If you do genuinely think that my life logging is in need of help, 1, you're wrong. 2, this isn't an intervention, I swear. And 3, there is a link to contact me on our Ramtel website. So you can also find me on Twitter at JSR7, but please don't intervene. Let me live my weird data-driven life. Not even data-driven, data driving. I'm driving data for others.
I mean, I do admit that
weirder?
it has been handy from time to time when I asked Jason, like, when was the last time we were here? And he's like, oh, I can tell you exactly. And it's like, I don't know if I need it exactly. I would have been happy with, like, 2 years ago. But...
Well, the way it's actually been useful, there have been times like, where did we go after we did X, Y, or Z? Like, what was that restaurant? And I'm like, oh, it's this restaurant, because I could just look at that day and see. It's rare. I jokingly would be like, God, we haven't been here since, like, 2019. But, yeah, you have definitely at least 3 or 4 times actually asked me to, like, look something up because you remember we went to someplace good or something on whatever day we did that other thing.
Yeah, there's only 3 things ever certain in life: Texas death and Jason checking into a fast food restaurant.
Correct. And I will let you guys know. I'm just going to pull up the numbers again real quick. These
like
check-ins have totaled. Yeah, well, it's death, taxes, and what is the real expression?
Disappointment?
Heroin use.
Yeah, there we go.
Or is the punchline always a joke? Or the third one always a joke?
I think it's almost always a joke. For what it's worth, I've been on Foursquare since I think like 2009 or 10, which then became Swarm. And to date, I have checked in, 11,597 times.
Damn.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's a lot of swarming.
I'm swarming. There's a map that like shows you where you checked in your city or whatever, and it's like just orange dots everywhere. Like it's actually kind of cool to like visualize. Like I like visualizing data, so it's kind of neat. For comparison, oh, that's interesting. I was gonna say I've only tweeted I've tweeted less than that, but Twitter removed your total tweet count, or maybe they never showed it. I don't know how many times I tweeted. It's gone. Thought they used to show that. But definitely have checked in more than I've tweeted. So.
Yeah. Well, at least we'll count on that next time. Maybe I'll ask you today, later on, about certain restaurants. But we'll see.
Yeah, just quiz me, essentially. I am your... remember back in the, like, when we were kids, before, like, the internet really blew up, you had to, like, if you needed to look something up, they had those encyclopedias, and you were, like, you just go into, like, your school library or something, they just had, like, 50 books, A through Z, and you just look up what you need. I'm basically that for where you've been. You just be like, I'm looking for, like, what was this place? And I think it's, like, maybe it started with a D, and then I'll find it. I'm the Encyclopedia Britannica of where we have been in life together.
Yeah, everybody needs one.
Exactly. I'm useful, is what I'm saying. I'm weird, but I'm useful.
That's why we keep Jason around.
And that's why I'm around. Yep, that's why I have friends. Is my
most likely the only reason, but yeah.
I mean, this seems like a really good place to stop the show. I'm just saying, before we get too deep down this rabbit hole. Unless anyone had anything they want to talk about.
I want to talk about the Fast 10 trailer.
I've yet to see it, but why is it 4 minutes long?
I actually randomly saw it yesterday.
I think the Fast 9 trailer was like 5 minutes long.
Why? That's a short. That's like a short before a Pixar movie. Why is that just a trailer? That's like that's eighth of the movie.
Let's see F9 trailer.
Jason.
Yes, Angel. Are you about to defend?
Load up the trailer right now.
It literally needed all those minutes to get its point across. Otherwise, I would want...
I know Jason Momoa rolls in like halfway through on a motorcycle.
All I know that, like, by the time I was done watching it, I felt like I had seen the movie.
That's what I'm saying. Like
that's
becoming more of a problem with trailers in general, that they show all the twists. But like, if you're this long, so you want me to watch it while you're talking?
Yeah, you can watch it.
Okay. I feel like I'm going to have some conflicting sound here.
I doubt
Should
it.
I give a commentary as I watch?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, please do. All right, this is Jason trying to live stream. Take one.
Who? Oh, is that his mom? Wait, who plays his mom? Why does she look so familiar?
Rita Moreno. Yes,
that's so
she is playing Dom's mom.
Don't laugh.
No, it's just like I would not. The casting they get for this franchise is all over the place now. Is what I mean. It's really hard to give live commentary, except it looks like they were in Italy briefly.
So he's related to Aquaman, or
they are in Italy. It looks like they're in Rome.
In part 9?
No, he's related to John Cena.
Then why is Aquaman?
And now they're back in Brazil? That's like Fast 5.
Yes. Just
wait,
keep
is
watching.
this whole movie... Hold on, they're showing the bank heist. Is this whole movie like they angered someone for a split second in Fast 5, so now they need to do a whole other movie?
Like,
just
Jesus
keep watching.
Christ.
Okay, they're officially out of ideas.
This is the last movie, Jason.
It's part 1 of the last movie. There's 2 last movies.
You're telling me that the movie series that has more retcons than the DCU is running out of ideas?
The thing that I'm perplexed by, so there's a split sec, if I understand this trailer correctly, which granted I'm still watching, there's some really great explosions. I'll give them that. Oh, and the jump off the bike, that's cool. But look at that car flip. Anyway, what I was getting at is, so let me make sure I understand the premise. The premise is, in a split second shot in Fast 5, they showed a random car getting hit by the vault they were carrying, and the car fell off the freeway. And normally no one bats an eye at that in a movie. But now the entire plot of this one is the dude whose family was in that car actually is a cartel like drug lord or someone in power, and he's going to seek revenge on all of them?
So Jason Momoa is the son of the villain of Fast 5.
Okay. That's at least a little better than just here's a random car we hit.
And he's going for revenge. Which is the third time that I think that they've done that in this series.
Yeah.
Maybe the second time? Second time. Because the first time they did it was in Fast 6, going into Fast 7, where Jason Statham was getting revenge on Dom's crew for, like, hurting his little brother.
Oh, right, and John Cena's in this. Oh, man, are they really using Ride or Die as the movie's tagline? Because that's kind of perfect, but also ridiculous.
I'm going to go with
I will say,
perfect.
These movies, while
don't
they
know how
are
you can hate
ridiculous,
these
they're very
movies,
good at
man.
being ridiculous. You know?
I don't know. I just don't know how you can hate these movies. I'm sorry.
That's what I'm saying. They're very good at being ridiculous. You just go, you turn off your brain and go along for the ride. No pun intended. And this looks like, are they about to jump cars out of a plane right above? Oh man! Spoiler alert for the trailer.
It wouldn't be the first time that they do it. So,
But they did it like, yeah, that's true. They've done all this before. Are they going to space in the next one? Is that happening?
they've already been to space.
Oh,
Spoilers
to be
for
honest,
Fast
I have
9.
not watched the last one.
They go to space in F9. I'm sorry, not
Yeah.
Fast 9, F9.
You could say this one is more grounded compared to that one.
I mean, to be honest, it does seem more grounded in a weird way. Is that Brie Larson?
That is Brie Larson.
What is going on with this movie? This is like, I think, you know what? I think we should do a Ram Nintendo outing to this and then talk about it on the show after it comes out.
For Fast 10?
Yeah.
I don't know if they're calling it Fast X or Fast 10.
Are any of you actually watching it in theaters?
Hell yeah, dude.
I am down to do an outing.
Are pure, like, I tweeted about this. I can't hate these movies. They bring me such irrational joy.
They're really good at ridiculous, yeah. And granted, I haven't seen Fast 9, but I remember Angel, I think we watched
Yeah, the fact
Fast
they took out 2 helicopters
and had a
car,
fun time with it.
It's pretty funny.
Well,
yeah, it's a superhero movie.
If I remember correctly, The Rock took out a drone with an ambulance. So
totally plausible.
And they punched a missile.
You just need enough inertia, enough height, a low enough drone, good aim, gravity to not exist quite how you think it does, and then it's doable. Yeah, totally.
I love this series so much. They're so stupid. I dislike anybody who, like, you know, turns their nose to this.
No, I had a lot of fun. A friend of ours, for your guys' reference, Gilbert, and I we got to see an early screening of Fast 5, and we had a ball, and that got me really, like, into the series. I have somehow missed Fast 9, though, or F9. I need to go back. But, yeah, no, they're fun in such an over-the-top, ridiculous, like, just popcorn flick way. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess it sounds like there is, a reason to go to the theater this year.
I mean, there's another called Mario, but okay.
Oh, all right. We'll see.
I'm so excited for the Mario movie. I didn't think I'd say those words when they first announced Chris Pratt.
Oh,
but
but I mean, in general, I'm like, really?
I don't care about the voices anymore. Like, it just looks so good. I'm not going to spoil anything, don't worry, but it just looks so good.
That's what a schizophrenic also says.
What?
That's also what a schizophrenic says. I don't care about the voices.
I don't care about the voices. It looks so good. Yeah, but in this case, I just mean I mean exactly what I said, actually. Yeah.
Wow.
Anyway, on that note, I guess, I think we can call it a wrap because I don't think we're going to top that line that you just said, Kevin. So, best place to find us is on the internet. We are on all the podcast apps. If you want to listen to us, you probably already are on one of those. How else would you hear us? But you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, our YouTube, TuneIn, Pandora. That's all I got. Our YouTube is at Random Nintendo. Our Twitter is at Random Nintendo. Our individual Twitters, in case you want to hear, we have all gotten in the habit, and I started it, so I will admit it, of being like, hey, as I said on Twitter to people we then proceed to tell to follow us on Twitter. But if you want to get the inside track on what we'll say on the next podcast, as we say it on Twitter first, you can find me at JSR7. You can find Kevin at KVN Gomi. You can find Angel, who is probably the best at not doing that pattern, at Weiro, WEIRO _O. And, yeah, I think that's it. Kevin, do you want to give the final word?
I'm really glad they didn't call it Fasten Your Seatbelts.